Okay, hello and good afternoon to all of you. So, just previously we have done the LSR algorithm. So, I'm just going to complete that bit. Okay, so okay, so the comparison between DVR and LSR. Okay, so all the things that we have seen, I'll just write it as it is. Okay, first of all, the DVR was the first algorithm in routing in the category of routing algorithm. So it was invented around 1980s, and LSR is a later algorithm. It was around invented around the 1990s. Okay, so that is why in LSR, if you see, there is a much more storage space, and the routers has the global information as compared to DVR, because the storage space was very less back then, and it only has the information of its neighbor. Okay, so another thing is the bandwidth requirement is very low, because you are only sending the distance vector of your neighbors. In comparison, this one LSR, the bandwidth requirement is very high, because you're flooding the whole outgoing nodes of your router path. Okay, so it is why LSR requires a lot of bandwidth. Another thing is that you already know about this it will the DVR router. If you are implementing a DVR algorithm, the router will have a local knowledge, and in LSR the router will have a global knowledge. So that are, I'm discussing only those points that are actually make sense. Okay, so you may have seen this in the algorithm itself. Okay, so the algorithm implemented in shortest path algorithm was Dijikastra algorithm for finding the shortest path between two routers. In this, it is not actually, I would call an algorithm, but because the algorithm itself is DVR, but it is very similar to, I will say, Bellman-Ford algorithm that is also used in data structure, and in algorithms parts you may have studied about this particular algorithm. Okay, so I will not directly formally say that it is that Bellman-Ford algorithm is used, but it is very close to Bellman-Ford algorithm. Okay, so Bellman-Ford algorithm, what happens is that again you will take 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds to actually get the shortest path. Okay, so Bellman-Ford algorithm only works or all pair shortest path algorithm. Bellman-Ford is, and this Dijikastra algorithm is single source shortest path. Okay, so it means it will be implemented on a particularly two routers. So if you want to find that shortest path between A to B, you implement Dijikastra. But if you find the shortest path of all the nodes, okay, so you will apply Bellman-Ford. Okay, so I cannot directly say it is very close to the Bellman-Ford, but it is actually not Bellman-Ford. So there are some differences, but it is very close. Okay, so another thing is that, okay, so if I talk about traffic here will be very less, because we are not doing much, because we are only exchanging the distance vector. As compared to this, traffic here will be very high, because we are doing flooding at every point. Okay, another things can be that periodic update. They both have periodic update, so that I cannot call it difference, but periodic updates here will also be there, and here will also be a periodic update. So just I'm writing for the sake of understanding that both have periodic updates. Okay, so this is not a point of difference, still I'm writing it, so I'm just highlighting this point. Okay, another one, that is the advantage of this particular algorithm, is that the convergence is very fast. Okay, why the convergence is fast? Because you only have to apply uh, the Dijkastra algorithm between two paths. Here you have to apply the Bellman-Ford at every other router. So that why if you apply DVR algorithm, it will take first round, then you apply again, then second round, then apply again, then third round. It takes a lot of time. But if you apply this LSR, every router will have a information of every other router. So it directly applies Dijkastra algorithm, because it's only one round algorithm. Okay. Another, you can say that count to infinity problem is there. Okay, so count to infinity. Okay, so I can call it difference point. There is no count to infinity problem here. Another thing I can call it here, there is something called a persistent looping. Okay, so if you remember, persistent looping. here there is something called a transient. So that is why I'm again using the word so you remember. Okay, so here this particular algorithm is used in routing information protocol. Okay, RIP, popularly known as RIP. Okay, and this one is popularly known, this is used as in OSPL protocol. Okay, so this is open shortest path first algorithm. Okay, so DVR and LSR are the concepts and they are implemented by this algorithm, these two algorithms. Okay, so again you can see one point if you want to add, the computation here is very simple because only the distance vectors exchange with each other. You do not have to do much. Okay, here the computation is a bit complex because there are so many things going on at once, because you also have to take care of the TTL, time to live. You also have to take care of the sequence number. You have to check if it is the latest packet in your routing table, and again you also have to see that what information you have available at what at what time. Okay, another thing is just I'm just highlighting this point again, that RIP is an implementation of DVR. Keep that in mind. Okay, so okay, so again one more thing, infinity is not practically used. So infinity in computer networks means 16 hop. Okay, so the metric is referred to as your hop count. So if you want to say that if it is infinity, so you can say infinity is equal to 16 hops. Okay, so I think in the previous lecture I may have said 15, but actually it is 16 hop. Okay, so if any other packet is taking then more than 16 hops, it means that that the routing algorithm got stuck in the infinite loop. So you get to know. So that is why there is a TTL packet. So after 16 hops, the packet just expires and there is nothing there. Okay. In a similar way, if you see OSPF algorithm, you may have seen it in your labs also. So OSPF is a implementation of LSR, one point. Another point is that it is not just black and white. Okay, so you cannot think it like that, that our router uses OSPF or our router uses DVR. Actually, the router itself uses both of the algorithm. It depends upon the situation. Okay, so if the situation demand only with the exchange of your with the, because we have a count to infinity problem solution, that is our split horizon. Okay, so you can use it. So when there is no matter of convergence, you can use DVR, and when there is a matter of convergence, you always use OSPF. Okay, so again, it is not like black and white like that. You will either use OSPF or you will either use RIP. Okay, so it's again a combination of both of these two algorithms. Okay, so it depends upon the router, and the decision of the router is autonomous. So you do not have any say in it. The algorithms are pretty much implemented within the router. So the routers are able to take decisions that which particular algorithm to follow at what particular point, because the metric is already defined in the algorithm. Okay, so in OSPF, it will be a little bit different than that, because if you see it's an implementation of LSR, it means you have everybody have a information of the whole internet. Okay, so if I write a OSPF implementation, it will be something like that. Okay, so let me just draw a little bit of a diagram. So it is divided into something called areas. There will be multiple paths exist between routers, something like that. Okay, so just let me complete that diagram. I'm just drawing a random diagram. Okay, so suppose there is something there. I can draw three areas. Okay, so I can say this is one area, area 1, area 0, something like this. Okay, so I can say area 3, this is area 2, or you can call area 1, the remaining part will be some area, other area. Okay, so what happens in OSPF is that the procedure is actually the whole of the routers are divided into areas. Okay, So every area has something called a border router. Suppose this is your border router. Okay, so again, every border router will be connected to specific area that is referred to as area 1. So this has a specific name as a backbone zone. It is also referred in some books. Another books refer it as zone 0, or there is another name for it is area 0. Okay, so both of these can be used. Okay, now every this suppose this is again a border router. So what happens in OSPF, because OSPF is an implementation of the whole internet, because it is based on LSR. Okay, so there in every you divide the whole internet into some areas. Okay, so in every area there will be one border router present. Okay, so border router will take all the flooded packets. It will take all the flooded packets from all this router and summarize the information. Okay, so by summarizing the information, it will send this information to this particular area 1, that is referred to as your backbone zone or zone 0 or zone area 0. Okay, so this particular backbone zone has all the information regarding this area 3, as well as this particular has the information of area 2 as well. Okay, so backbone zone always have a implementation, or it always have the information of all the areas that we are dividing the internet into. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so another algorithm that is again, there is something new term that you may have heard about, that is a border gateway protocol. Border gateway protocol. Okay, so again this is again the technique that I've told you about, that you take a router, just specify a router, and that router will be placed at the border, and it has the all the information regarding a particular area. Okay, so this particular algorithm again can be used in RIP, as well as it can also be used in OSPF. Okay, so there is no proper implementation. I can say that BGP or border gateway protocol is only used in OSP, so it can also be used in RIP or OSPF. Again, if you're seeing here, what we are studying here is completely a theoretical implementation of what we have seen. Okay, actually, what in your routers, if you see, there is another protocol that is, again, this is a practical. I do not mean to tell you it is not theoretical. So theoretical here, everything is finished theoretically, but practically in routers there is some other protocol. I think that is EIGRP. Okay, so again, this particular EIGRP has both of these algorithm, that is RIP and OSPF, and the router again is autonomous what to do it. Okay, so I think it was EIGRP. The full form was Gateway Routing Protocol. Okay, so I can search it if I have full form. I don't remember it. I don't remember if this is the algorithm. Yeah, enhanced interior gateway routing protocol. Okay, so it always, it both uses it. Again, this particular gateway algorithm is implemented in Cisco's router. Okay, so again, it's something called advanced distance vector algorithm. It's a little bit combination of both of these algorithms. Okay, so it is again a practical implementation of how routing takes place, but again, the concept that these are based on is already theoretically they are correct. They are again, practical implementation of RIP is similar, and the practical implementation of OSP is also similar, that we have studied in our books. Okay, so with this, your routing algorithms have been completed. So I have covered the border gateway protocol as well. So now there are some algorithms that are remaining. So there are some protocols, more specifically protocols. Okay, so I'll discuss about these protocols. So some of these protocols are found on how do I say this, are found on network layer, and some of these protocols that I will discuss will be a part of application layer. Okay, so there will be a lot of confusion, because I am standing inside a network layer. So you will be thinking I will discuss all the algorithms that are present in the network layer, but there are some algorithms that are in the application layer that I will also discuss in this part, because in network layer, some of the algorithms are half baked. Okay, so they are again completely implemented in network layer from the ground up, and it's a better technique. Okay, so when I follow the storyline, you will get it. What do I mean by everything? Okay, so now I'll start with address resolution protocol. So you may have already known about the address resolution protocol part. So again, I the PPT is already there. It's there to tell you about everything. So uh, I'll just give you a summarized view of ERP. So if you remember, it will be easy for you to understand if I take some example of ERP. I'll just take it. Just wait a second. Okay. So again, there I'll say now I will saying and protocols at network layer. So network layer protocols are ERP and RARP. So I have told you about ERP, but it was again because you do not, I have not told you about that this particular algorithm is implemented at network layer. Okay, so I have okay. So now protocols that are implemented are a network layer. The first protocol is popularly known as ERP, that is your address resolution protocol. So you already know what is the purpose of it. The purpose of this protocol is to convert your IP address into a MAC address. Okay, so I'll again take the same information. So this is your protocol, what you say, your architecture stack. Okay, so in this, suppose this is your network layer, and in this network layer there is something called IP address. We have already said IP addressing is also a part of network layer, and in this network layer there is something called ARP. Okay, so now from this particular step, and network layer passes the frame or passing whatever it is formed till now to ARP. Okay, so now if I start with it, suppose there are two, I'll take the scenario again. I want to send A to B. There will be many other machines within, and I want a broadcast. Okay, so I'll take the same thing. So suppose the scenario is A wants to send information to B. Okay, so this is the scenario. So I'll say case. Okay, so there will be two cases. The first case can be that B is present in the same network. Another case can be B is present in different network. Okay, so these are the two cases. How you can get to know if this is present in the same as and this is present in the different, by using the subnet mask. If you remember, just take the IP address and take the subnet mask and take a AND of it. If that particular network ID lies in your it is equal to your network ID, so you can directly say that this is lies in my network. Okay, so for the sake of simplicity, I'm taking the first case. The first case was, I'm thinking I'll also tell you about the second case, but I'm just taking the first case just to be, I do not want to include complicated elements only. So B is present in the same network. Okay, so now what happens at the receiving sender side. Okay, so at sender sides, you already know there is something called from a side application layer. There are some things I just will not discuss about this application layer, presentation layer. Now the main thing that will come is transport layer. Okay, so at transport layer, if I am a there will be transport layer header. In this header, you will get to add the information about first one. You add the information about the port number. Okay, so I'll explain it with P A and PB, something like this. Okay, so the port number information is added to you. Suppose if they are using the HTTP port, so that port number you can write it here. Okay, so source port, destination port will be available to you. And suppose this is the message M. So at application layer, you want to transfer this message. Okay, so at transport layer, port numbers will be added. At network layer now, what happens is that you will add the IP addresses. Okay, so I'll add port number will be as it is. Now I will add one more thing, that is internet IP address of the source, another thing internet IP address of the destination. Okay, so it's a it's already
Just
there.
to confirm,
Yes.
you'd like to
Wait a
hear the
second. I
song
will
Iced Earth?
stop. Okay, so now if you think about it, the network layer will add your source IP and your destination IP. Okay, so at network layer you will have this kind of a packet. Okay, so now when you transfer from this network layer, there is something called a ARP. Now you already know. So in network layer there will be ARP. So this layer will transfer this particular thing to ARP. Okay, so now ARP has the responsibility to find out the MAC address, because your DLL data link layer deals only in MAC. Okay, so DLL do not know about anything, it only deals in MAC. So what it does, this ARP, what this particular ARP does is that it will say that I have the IP address. So I'll say I have the IP address, I do not have the MAC address. It will prepare the packet like this, and and it will also IP address, and it is asking the MAC address, and it will give the MAC address of the source machine MA. And here in this packet it will embed something called a broadcast. Okay, so ff.ff.ff, because it is if you remember, it's a 48-bit address, so I think 1 2 3 4 5 6 will be there. Okay, something like that. Okay, so now what actually is happening here? So ARP is saying that I know the IP address of the destination machine, but I do not know the IP address of the I do not know the MAC address of the destination machine. So please, because DLL deals in MAC address, so please send me the MAC address of the same machine. Okay, so it is asking for the MAC. Okay, so I already told you that they lie in the same network. Okay, so this particular ARP request is broadcasted to all the workstations or all the devices that are already there in the network. And if they are meant for this particular machine, now it will see that the IP address matches with my IP address. So when the packet comes to this particular machine, it will say that the IP address lies with my machine, this is my IP address. So it means that some other machine is asking for my MAC address. So what it do, it will reply. It is also known as ARP reply. ARP reply. Now this ARP reply is unicast in nature. Keep that in mind. Okay, so why it is unicast? Because I do not want to give the information of a MAC address of or to all the machines that are present in my network. Okay, so I only want to give the information of who have asked it. Okay, so now when I give a unicast reply, now what will be the what will the reply look like that? Okay, so I can also show you. So the reply will be something like this. So it will receive MAC address. Okay, so I'll start with the same thing. Why I'm changing it? So the reply from V will look like something like this. Okay, so it will be IB here. Okay, so with this IB, the MAC address of MB will be written there. So because it was empty before, and after that, whatever it is in the packet, I'll write the source MAC address, whatever is the source MAC address, source MAC address and the destination MAC address. So I have to give the information for transferring it. Okay, so if you are seeing here, this particular packet is just a reply. Okay, so this is asking a question that give me the IP address. So the question is answered here, and these are the source and destination. So I have to give it for communication. So keep in mind, this is the answer to the question, and this is for communication. So you may be thinking why MB and MB is repeated twice. So it is just to make it simple so that you understand. Okay, so now keep that in mind. ARP request is broadcasted. Okay, so one thing take away from this is ARP request is broadcasted, but ARP reply is unicasted. Okay, so there is a difference between these two. It's a very important thing. Okay, so now another thing, if you know that if they lie in the same network, there you will directly get the IP address. So that is simple. Okay, now in that case, we are case 2. Uh, Again, we have discussed the case 2 earlier, but still I'll tell you about something about it. So in case 2, when B does not lie in the same network. Okay, at that time, what will happen? So ARP request, when it is ARP request is given, so there will be some at the end of the network, there will be something called a router. Okay, so that will be placed, always placed. Okay, so if there is a network, there will always be a router. So router will act like a bounding box. Okay, so if the machine does not reply, the router will see. So the router will take over and it will send the MAC address of the router R1 to this particular machine A. Okay, so he will send this to the router, and router will take a look at it and decide if this lies in my network or in different network, and it depends upon the implementation of the router. Okay, so in case 2 is very simple. If the B does not lie in your own network, you just send the same packet to the MAC address of the router. Okay, so keep in mind, whenever you are you always have to have a MAC address, because in DLL we always communicate via MAC address. Okay, so that is one thing. Another thing, it can be various cases in which ARP apply. So keep that in mind. So very important thing. So many people make mistake here. So that is why I am writing here. Okay, so in which we apply ARP. Okay, so very simplest case that you have seen right now, it is host to host. Okay, so you apply host. A was one host and B was another host. You send the ARP request to B and B replied with the ARP reply. Okay, another thing can be host to router. Okay, so that is also possible. Another thing can be router to router is also possible. Router to router. Okay, so I'm just denoting router as R1. Okay, another one can be router to host is also possible. So this is also possible that router can ask another host for its MAC address. Okay, because if you remember, a router has 3 layers. Okay, so it has a network layer. Okay, if it has a network layer, it means it has a ARP. Okay, so if it has a ARP, it can ask to another machine for its MAC address. Okay, so it is as simple as that. So everything I have discussed here, it's also given in this your PPT. So again, the same example, a little bit different, but it is based on the same line. Okay, so source MAC, sender IP, target MAC, target IP. So just keep in mind the format is used like this. Okay, first it is will be source MAC, then the sender map, and target MAC and target IP. So in particularly the packets are written like this. So I have not written like this. I've just directly taken any order. But actually in Cisco's exam, they ask the question about the order too. Okay, so that is why I've given you this diagram. Keep that in mind. After sender MAC, there will be sender IP, then target MAC, and then there will be target IP. Okay, same procedure. Keep that in mind. Okay. It's the same example, and this is again question is asked in GATE. It's a very simple question. If you see, asking the address resolution protocol is used for finding the IP address from DNS. It is not correct. Finding the IP address of the default gateway, it is also not correct. Finding the IP address that correspond to the MAC address, I think it is correct. Yeah, and finding the MAC address that correspond to the IP address. This is not correct, because uh, I already have a IP. I want a MAC. algorithm that is just reverse of ARP. That is also literally the name of it is reverse ARP. Okay, so that is also known as RARP. Okay, so now from this particular step, now everything that I will discuss the advanced part of RARP also, so that is why I'm saying that some protocols are implemented in application layer, but it will make sense from now. So understand RARP. After that, you will understand everything. Okay. So two algorithms are implemented, two protocols are implemented on network layer. First one is ARP, second one is RARP. Okay. So just wait for a second. Okay, so back to reverse ARP. Okay, so again, the purpose is now reverse. Now you have a MAC address. Now you want a IP address. Okay, so now this is a whole new concept. Now you will be thinking, why do I need an IP address when I already have a MAC address? Okay, so now it's a completely different thing. So I have to explain you a different scenario. Okay, so suppose I'll talk about case one. Okay, so case one. So in your, I don't, if I take example of, yeah, I can take it. Right now, if you see, your labs are pretty advanced right now. If you take a look at the lab in Bennett University, every computer has its own hard disk, and every computer has its own dedicated resources that is available to you. But back then, back around 2004, 5, 6, around that time, around that period, what we used to do that we just take CPUs, and in those CPUs there will be no hard disk, and there is nothing like that. Okay, so all the CPUs are working on a centralized system. So there is one centralized system that contain the your operating system, and from that system every other computer is running. And if you see here, that at the time of our labs, that when we used to do it, we save one file on one computer in one lab, and we able to see our same saved file on other computer as well. Okay, so why is that happening? Because everything has a centralized system. Okay, so if I say in I don't say that we use this quite right now, because right now the labs are pretty advanced and every computer has its resources now. But at around 2005-6, at the time of 2010s also, we used to have this system in our college lab. What used to happen is that there have been computers, but those computers actually do not contain any hard disk or actually any RAM also. Okay, so how these systems are used to implement it, there is something called uh, network file server that is placed and that is connected to all the computers there. Okay, so this is called a network file server. Now understand this point. Now every computer is not connected to the internet. Okay, so suppose if without hard disk, computer cannot remember anything. Keep that in mind. Without hard disk, computer cannot remember anything because only ROM, because it is stored in the RAM. Okay, so only ROM means your NIC. So NIC number is, it's a MAC address, like MAC address. It is stored permanently, because NIC means you have a MAC address. So MAC addresses are stored in the RAM. So there is no need to remember the MAC address because it is already available to you. But keep that in mind when we need a IP address. Now this is the main part here. Okay, so for IP address, it is a software number. So you already know this. Okay, so IP address is just a software number that is stored in the RAM. Okay, so that is stored in the RAM at this particular case here. And when you switch off the computer, the IP again IP address is forgotten. Okay, another case can be if you are simply using this case and you are introducing a new computer in this particular system. I'll call this a case 2. Okay, so again this particular system needs a IP address. Okay, so this particular system already have a NIC, but this particular system also need a IP address to enable to connect to internet. Okay, so that is one thing. So now in this particular system, our RARP system comes into play. Okay, so what is the meaning of that? Now suppose this is again one thing. This is your network layer. From this network layer you pass something to ARP, but now there is something written here, RARP. Okay, so again both of these protocols are present in network layer, but they will get active saying a particular structure of the frame. Okay, so if the MAC address, if sorry okay, so if the IP address is not written in the network layer frame, RARP become active because it already know, because the IP address of source is not available to you. So it means I need to use RARP. Okay, so now there is, if I make a particular arrangement for it, RARP, there will be a central server. So to solve this problem, there is a central server, that is your RARP server that is placed. Okay, so another, there will be NFS, network file system also, and then there will be a router. Okay, so now what is the meaning? What is this RARP server is containing here? So this particular server contains the IP addresses of the MACs that are present in the network. Okay, suppose M1 is connected to I1, M2 is can have a IP address of I2, something like that. Okay, so it goes on like that. So we invented a RARP server, and if you are previously connected to the internet, you have some IP address that is assigned to you, and now after when you switched off your computer, your IP address is also gone. So what you do, uh, when your computer is switched on and you want to connect to internet, you contact to the RARP server to know about your IP address. Okay, so suppose this is M1, you just communicate with the RARP server saying that I do not have my IP address, kindly give me the IP address. It will see from this database and it will send the IP address back to MAC. Okay, so I'll show you that. Again, you will be thinking, how will this M1 knows the location of RARP server, where the RARP server will lie? Again, it will not know anything about RARP server. It will again send a broadcasting reply. Okay, So again, I'll draw the same thing. So I'll write it as RARP request. Okay. Now again, AL application layer, at transport layer, suppose there is a message, and after the message, what will you add? Okay, so there is some new thing here. Okay, so I'll just write the port number of A, port number of B, and anything can happen here. Now go to network layer. Now this is the main part here. Okay, so in network layer you will see the packet will be same here. Whatever is the packet earlier was there. So I'm writing it as it is. Okay, so here you will see the in network layer what I did here. In network layer you get to add the, just wait a second, you get to add the IP addresses. Okay, so you do not have the IP address. Okay, so how do you indicate that I do not have the IP address? Is that this particular network, because you do not have a destination IP address, this particular packet will be passed to something called a RARP. Okay, so now what will RARP do? It will say it will say that the MAC address of A is available to me, that is MA, and it will write 0.0.0.0 here. Okay, so the 0.0.0.0 means it's a signal. Okay, it means I do not have a IP, don't know my IP. Okay, so this is the signal that this RARP use. Okay, so now this particular signal, now when RARP embedded this packet, now it can be transferred to DLL if you want. And from DLL, what can happen here? From DLL, you get to know this packet MA, you embed in the DLL from 0.0.0.0. Okay, so now there will be MAC address of A. Yeah, because MAC address of A is already known to you, and I am asking a question here. So what it will be? Just wait a second. Okay, so what here it will be? Again, I will write a broadcasting method. Okay, so whatever it is, if you remember, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 48-bit address. Okay, that is why it's 6. Okay, so you are giving again a broadcasted reply to your or broadcasted means whatever it is, you are sending this particular message to all of the devices that are connected to you. Okay, so this particular packet will eventually reach at RARP server. Okay, RARP server, because of this packet, that 0.0.0, RARP will recognize that this particular packet is meant for me, and it will go towards the database, and it will say that what is this A IP address, what is the IP address of A is there. Okay, so it will, whatever is the IP address, it will again send a RARP reply saying whatever is the request answer of it. So if I send if I form a RARP reply, it will something look like that. RARP reply, it will be something like so I'm forming the same thing, MA. Now in place of 0.0.0, there will be IA, and then I have to write the source and destination part. So what is the source? Source will be this router, so I am writing it as MR. What is the MAC address of this server? MR, this is the source, and destination will be again MA, the MAC address of it. Okay, so again the RARP reply is a unicast reply. Same thing is happening. Okay, so you will be thinking that why does not it go beyond this server? Because this router is acting as a bounding box. Okay, so this router will not allow this RARP request to go beyond this particular space, because if you know, uh, if RARP server is in another network, the router will discard the packet as it is broadcasting in DLL. Okay, so if you know that that router can also go inside the packet and look into the packet. So router will know that it is a RARP packet. So it means that the RARP server lies inside this network. So I do not need to send this packet outside of my network. So router just discard this packet. Okay. So keep that in mind. This is the disadvantage also, that every network, suppose this is one network, this is another network, this is another network. So every network should have a RARP server, every network, because it cannot go beyond this router, because routers are programmed in such a way that it will not forward your RARP request to another network. Because why does not it forwards the RARP request to other network is that because you want the previously used IP address. Okay, so that information should be available in your RARP server. Okay, another problem is that if you are in an organization, suppose this is a structure of the organization. Okay, so what will be the problem in that the RARP server that you keep here, it will not be different from each other. Okay, so they will be, this is a redundancy that you are talking about here. Okay, so this will become a distributed network. Okay, so again, if you have assigned a IP address, suppose there is newly A has a IP address of IA from this server, you have assigned a IP address of IA, and there is another server B, and you assigned the IP address of IA to this B also. This can happen because this is not a centralized system. This is a distributed system. So if this is a distributed system, the same IP can be assigned to the same particular machine at the same time. So that is the problem. So there, the updations, the deletions, again, it's a complex thing. Okay, so that is a very complex thing. Another thing, okay, so I'll write the disadvantage. Distributed network, it will become, if it becomes a distributed network, so complex updations, updation, deletions, and everything. So you have to make technique for that as well. Okay. Another thing, assignment is static. Okay, so assignment means that static means that you cannot assign dynamically any other IP address. Suppose if you have suppose if you have 100 stations, you have to have 100 IPs. Okay, so this is static. So if you have assigned one IP address to A, then it is static. So every time the same IP address will be assigned to A only. Okay, so again, this is kind of an obsolete thing. Okay, so now it is not used. Keep that in mind. Okay, now in place of this, we use something called BOOTP, and now that is very popular right now. It is DHCP. Okay, so now both of this algorithm is an advanced version of these are this is RARP. Okay, but they are implemented at application layer. Okay, so that is why I've said that it will be a little bit different when I'm talking about the server that is RARP. It is implemented in network layer, but the advanced version of these algorithms are implemented in BOOTP and DHCP. Because it has many disadvantages, we do not use RARP server method, but we use BOOTP and DHCP. Okay, so again, it is also given, everything is given in your PPT. So whatever I'm telling you, it's just a summary of what it is given in the PPT. Okay, also discuss BOOTP and your DHCP in the next lecture. Okay, so because it's a little bit uh, big topic, so I'll discuss. I do not want to leave something in between. Discuss in the next one. Okay, any doubt, let me know.